Good afternoon, everybody. This is Christopher Rose here with Junk Doctors NJ, our sponsoring company that sponsors this podcast, Entrepreneur Small Businesses in New Jersey. And we are here with Bob Glass or Robert Glass, that says on the screen. Do you prefer to be called Robert or Bob?
You can call me Bob.
So this is Bob, and this is going to be very interesting. This podcast is kind of going to pretty much go and intertwine with things that we are also, as a junk removal company, exposed to. As a junk removal company, we've been exposed to hoarding situations with mouse feces and all types of contaminants. Unfortunately, we've also cleaned up sites where people have passed away, and we had to deal with biohazard type of cleanup. However, Bob Glass from TRS Group, a thermal remediation vendor, they do something way deeper than that particular cleaning. They are actually into environmental cleanup. And as we know, as New Jerseyans, and especially any New Jerseyans that live closer to the ports and all the industrial parts of New Jersey. Now, in New Jersey, if you haven't been able to tell, that's the first thing people see when they come into New Jersey. So they think that's New Jersey, all that industrial stuff. However, we are a diverse state with mountains and beautiful scenery and all that stuff. But we are a state that also participated greatly in building this country and the world with our products, and there's a lot of leftover byproduct, and this is where Rob Glass with TRS Group is going to explain to us, and he's going to let us know things that they have done and things that they do to help our environment, which is actually a hot button nowadays. I mean, people are concerned about where they live. I've heard statistics, just not to go off record or note, but I've heard people say that, you have a high rate of people with certain types of disability. Is that connected to waste? But that could be a whole nother theory that we don't know. And maybe Bob wouldn't understand, but he is, or does know, sorry about, but doesn't know about, but he does clean the waste, and his company does get it out of the ground, and they use specific methods. So for no longer to introduce to you, this is Bob Glass, and welcome to our show. Thank you for coming up. And please explain to us what you do.
Yeah. So TRS Group is an environmental remediation contractor. I'm a project manager for TRS. We specifically use thermal technologies to remove contaminants from soil and groundwater. So we were talking earlier, we can do that in situ, which means in the ground. We can also do it ex situ, which is probably more intuitive to your listeners. If you have a contaminated soil pile, for example, we're able to treat that with heat and clean it up.
Hey, can I ask you a question? That's very interesting. Let's say hypothetically a person buys a property. There's nothing built on that property. Now, is it mandated, or does it have to do with each specific state? Now, is it mandated that the person that's selling that land tell them if there was ever anything built there or anything that's polluted there?
That's a great question, and I can't speak to state by state what the requirements are. I think there are disclosure laws, so if you do know something like that, it should be disclosed. There's also due diligence on behalf of the buyer. So if they're going in, and we mostly deal with commercial properties for cleanup, or
yes,
we're working for large, Fortune 500 companies.
Really,
and lots of properties and property
developers.
We work for developers too. Yeah. We do a lot of federal work now. I think a greater percentage of our work now is coming from the federal side as well.
Really? Does that have anything to do with that? I don't know, the administration that we currently have passed the infrastructure cleanup bill.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with it?
We're hoping to see some benefit from that, certainly.
Yeah.
But, the gears of government move slowly.
Very.
Yeah, and especially in terms of remediation. specifically this type, we're working on bigger jobs, Superfund projects, things like that, that take a long time to come to fruition. So, we'll commonly work on a site where we're contracted with a consultant who's been working on that site, trying to get it to the point where the remediation, which is actually the cleanup, takes place for the better part of 20 years. There's certain sites where you could work your entire career trying to get one site cleaned up.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah,
and that's
a long
because of that particular waste sitting there for so long.
Well, it's not necessarily specific to the technology, and we'll get into various technologies and how TRS's technology works and why it's advantageous. But just talking about the life cycle of an environmental project, they can be extremely
long. So you can actually work on one job for a whole career.
We can't, but our clients, who are oftentimes environmental consultants, they're seeing a project through from its initial emergence as a contaminated site all the way through its closeout, and that can take an extremely long time. One of the reasons we've been successful with our technology is because it's extremely fast and extremely efficient and effective. Yes. In general, for TRS, a job will last about 1.5 years, and that includes contracting, construction, operation of the system, and final closeout.
You guys actually do construction?
Oh, we build all of our own systems, and all of our own equipment.
Okay, so you build the equipment that stays there to keep it going and keeps it clean.
So we have equipment that we've built in-house, it's all proprietary, in order to execute these projects. And I was telling you before, we have a warehouse in Indianapolis. So that's sort of our home base for all of that equipment. And then we'll ship that out to the various projects across the country. Utilize it there typically for, like I said, 1.5 years is the total project time. And then we'll ship that off either to the next job or back to our warehouse, et cetera.
What part of America do you see the most? I mean, I think the North is what probably was the most industrial part of America. But I mean, what part of America do you see the most?
What's the dirtiest part?
Yeah. What's the dirtiest part? Yeah.
It's interesting because likely the dirtiest part is not necessarily the part where we're the busiest. We're very busy in New Jersey, and historic. There's a lot of history here as far as industry goes. Yeah. But one of the reasons we're so busy here is because the regulatory environment is very stringent. So that's a really good thing. It's a good thing for the people that live here. It's a good thing for us as an environmental vendor. Yes. Because they have strict cleanup standards.
Oh, they sure do.
And they're serious about executing projects and cleaning up sites. And that's a fantastic thing for us and for our technology, because it's very effective. It's very fast. It's also expensive. Yes. As
is this technology was developed by solely just your company, or I mean, this was something that was engineered by you guys? You guys patented, and it's something that went through. Did you have to go through a regulatory process where you got to prove that this was the best way of cleaning? Because when you say thermal, when I think of thermal, I think of something that could see through walls to see if there's moisture, or go through and see, looking for some sort of.
You're thinking of like a thermal imager.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's the same route, right? You're looking for heat, for example. If you're going through for water damage or something like that, you're looking for a change in a heat signature or something like that. What we're doing is creating a heat signature, a very strong one, in the ground. And we use that heat to boil off contaminants. And there's a whole host of contaminants that we'll treat. Yes. And then we'll capture that contaminant after it's boiled and it's in a vapor phase, and then we'll treat it.
Wow. Yeah. What is the most common cleanup chemical that is usually like very common in the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. For our company, I would say that our bread and butter historically has been chlorinated solvents. Chlorinated solvents. So that's
plastic?
No, it's like a brake cleaner. Yes. You know what that is? Yes. All right. So that's like a chlorinated solvent. Okay. And what it is it's like a degreaser, more or less. It's used in lots of different processes.
Yes.
They're actually used in dry cleaners. They're used in all sorts of things where you need to degrease.
Yes.
Right. And across industry, they were everywhere. Historically, most manufacturing processes have used or are still using some sort of a solvent in order to clean parts and machines and, various ways to use them. So I would say historically, that's been our most popular contaminant as far as treatment.
Really?
But we can go after a whole host of other things. We can go after petroleum hydrocarbons. We can go after 1,4-dioxane, which is a emerging popular contaminant. And probably the biggest one right now that I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with and everybody's going to become familiar with in time is PFAS. PFAS, yes.
Okay.
That is definitely the contaminant that I think has the potential to be the biggest in terms of the market. It's the one that most people will know about. If they don't already, they will in the next 5 to 10 years.
And what is PFAS?
PFAS is it's a classifier for about 1,000 different chemicals that have been developed by all of your major manufacturers, your 3Ms, your DuPonts.
Oh, yeah.
There are a host of chemicals called forever chemicals, which means they do not go away. They do not biodegrade. They're very hard to get rid of once they're in the environment, in water and soil specifically.
That is very interesting. Let me ask you this, Bob. I mean, how long have you been in this industry?
So in the environmental remediation industry, 11 years now, but I've been with TRS going on 8 years.
Are you motivated by cleaning up this world or cleaning up this mess?
Sure. Yeah, I think
does it motivate you?
Yeah,
because you see what it does.
There's a lot of satisfaction. Yeah, and one of the reasons I like working for TRS specifically, and I've done other things. I've worked with other companies that did other technologies and other ways to clean sites. But one of the reasons I like working for TRS is because it's such an effective solution for very difficult and complicated environmental problems. And so often, I mean, we were just talking about it, right? Sometimes these sites are around for 20, 30 years, sometimes longer, right? And that's because along the way, it's not that people aren't trying to do things, right? They're trying other solutions. There's lots of technology and things you can do to try to clean sites. What I like about thermal is that it's usually the last stop for our clients, right? We are not their first call, and that's typically because of cost, right? It's a very expensive technology, but it is extremely effective. And I do take a lot of pride in the sites that we work on and the projects that we work on with our clients are usually the end of the road for the remediation. And that's, yeah.
And that's great. So that property that was clean can now be used for whatever was gonna maybe be built there.
Exactly.
I know growing up and reading and just remember growing up and reading about social studies actually current events. And I remember growing up and reading about, how lenient corporations were back in like the 70s and the 80s, even way before that, and how we used to just dump pure waste right into our waterways like the Rockaway River, and we have Jump Doctors is part of the Rockaway River cleanup group here in Denville that once a year we actually go with them, free of service. And I want to promote that just in case anybody wants to participate. We'll put a link on that for everybody to know about it, but it's the Rockaway cleanup. But we did that just, to help our community out and, promote and tell people that we are here as a junk removal company and the stuff that we pulled out of this river, because these people were older and young people, so they couldn't, heavy work. And we pulled out air conditions, tires, things that were just so polluted. And I was just like, man, it's just like we as a civilization, we would just dump stuff everywhere and then looking also, not to get off sidetrack, but even the rest of the world. I've studied other places, the way they transfer their waste. New Jersey has, like you said, very strict rules on transferring waste and where it goes. For instance, when we do let's say a house clean out and there's a hoarder clean out and there's a ton of waste, as long as there's no chemicals and whatever, it's just miscellaneous house garbage. We filled up 5-6 truckloads that are 25 cubic yards and brought it to a transfer station, and that waste would get dumped and it would be done organized. It would get dumped, sorted out, put into a truck, sent out of state, typically to Pennsylvania, Ohio, and they use these facilities that burn it. But when it's being burnt for energy, it goes through this filtration process, and the end part where the smoke comes out is totally clear.
Yeah, I
Now,
have a good friend that works in that business, actually.
yeah,
In
and
the waste energy field.
now, what do you think about that? Do you think that's something that, I mean, because they say that that's not going to be the answer to our issues, but America in general has a very good way to organize and get their garbage and make sure that it's done, regulatory wise. But if you see other like countries that are third world countries, and you see their waste systems is bad. It's like, I've seen places, I don't know the country's name, but I've seen places where people couldn't afford, the government couldn't afford a garbage system, and they would just dump it in just any field or any place, and it was just so unorganized. And I can't imagine how much of this chemical waste is all over the world.
Oh yeah, I mean it is all over the world. I can say that because we do have international partnerships.
You did say that.
And yeah, I was just actually in France for 3 weeks working over
How
there.
long ago were you in France?
I got back on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was the weather?
It was fantastic.
Really? Did you go to Paris?
No, I was in the other side of the country at a place called Annecy.
And what kind of work did you guys do there? Was there like a chemical type of thing?
Yep. A former manufacturing facility, treating chlorinated solvents, same thing.
Really?
That we were just talking about. Yeah, and that's not a uniquely American problem. That is a global problem, and it's, like I said, we work in a lot of industrial areas.
Have you ever worked in China?
We do work in China. Yeah, I haven't personally been there, but my company and several of my colleagues have been over there.
Imagine.
Yeah, we have a joint venture in China.
I've read a lot of environmental articles about China and how they dispose of waste, and some of it sounds very controversial to me.
Yeah,
especially chemical waste.
Well, I think they're
starting to break down.
I think they're starting to turn a corner.
Yes.
And at least as far as the thermal portion goes, they are aggressively pursuing and implementing that technology on major scales.
Good.
I mean, very, very large projects, and they've got the need, right? They're an industrial powerhouse for the world.
Yeah.
They've got the same problems that we see here in North Jersey. They've got, tenfold over there.
Wow.
So we're very excited to be in that market because I think the potential is huge. You
got to protect yourself on these sites too. Do you wear obviously protective gear and all that stuff?
Sure. Yeah. So much of that is dependent on, the contaminant and what's the level of exposure. And, we have to put together detailed health and safety plans before we even start a project that document and detail exactly what the risks are. What are the mitigation measures? If this happens, what do we do? Emergency response plans, you name it. We have to have all that in place.
You guys get to let's say a piece of land, and it's a developer wants it, but he has to go through this consulting company, tell them that, well, this is contaminated, but we have TRS, a company that we could call up
we'll
and
clean
use
it up
them.
for you.
You guys would actually get the excavation companies and everything to do everything?
Yeah, we self-perform most of our work. I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't subcontract. We definitely do. But the core business that we do is the thermal remediation, and we do it soup to nuts. We'll engineer the systems, we'll construct the systems, operate them, and then break them down and move to the next one.
Wow. Yeah. And what are you off to next? Anything exciting? I mean, France sounded like,
France was pretty cool. Sweet. Yeah, France was pretty sweet. I've got one going in Italy right now.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you going to go to that?
I don't know if I'll be able to. No, I think I'll miss the boat on that one because I do have a kid on the way.
Oh, congratulations. Do you know the gender? Or?
Yeah, it's a girl.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, she's due in early September. So if I It was already tough getting
Yeah.
over to France. If I leave and go back to Italy, I think my wife will kill me.
But
But
hey, you got to bring the bread and butter home, huh?
yeah. So, but yeah, just wrapping up a couple jobs in Indianapolis, close to our home base. Wrapped one in Alabama, and I think my next one's going to be in Alaska.
So it doesn't sound like you guys are slowing down anytime soon. And
No.
what it sounds like to me is that TRS is probably one of few companies that perform this sort of service. But it seems that you guys are ahead of your competition as far as the thermal and because you mentioned something that we also go by, getting the job done fast. You don't have to worry about nothing. There's, like we have the equipment, we have the labor, we have it all. You don't have to worry about anything. It sounds like you guys are on the same page. Pretty much a company or a person or a entity needs your service. You pretty much, whatever paperwork, whatever is done, contract, and then you take it from there. It sounds like you guys just take care of the problem. Obviously, there is a price tag, just like everything else.
Sure.
But it's worth, going through.
It's worth it. If I do say so myself, it's worth it. And, we are definitely a niche technology. We've only got a handful of competitors, and they're good companies too, right? We all specialize in little, pieces and portions of the process. But it's definitely a niche technology that's just extremely effective and fast. And, at TRS specifically, we're an employee-owned company, so it's
not a franchise.
No,
that's great, and
No.
Nothing against franchises, but we do pride ourselves as being non-franchise. Also, Junk Doctors and Jay was here, created in New Jersey for New Jersey, and I feel companies that are privately owned and self-owned, they're more motivated to do a better job because your name and reputation's on the line.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of being an employee-owned company, right?
Yes.
You have skin in the game. And
yes.
If the company does well, then you do well. If the company does better, you do better. So I think that's a great motivator, especially for a small company, right? We've only got about 70 people. But
wow.
Yeah.
70 people.
70 people. We got a wide reach, because it's such a unique and a niche technology. We're all over the place, right? We're all over the world. We have joint ventures in Brazil, a couple in Europe, one in China that we talked about, and we'll do work all over the U.S.
That is really,
I don't think we've done Hawaii yet, but I would like to do that. Everywhere else, I'm pretty sure we've been.
Maybe Hawaii doesn't have such a industrial because they were a tourist location.
Oh, they've got something. They've got something for us. We just need to find it.
We got to find it, yeah. I'm
find
sure, man. I mean, I know New Jersey is definitely a hot spot in the Northeast corridor. I mean, it's where the country pretty much started on this side of the country. So, I mean, it's probably one of the oldest parts of America on this side of the country.
I think it's been historically probably our busiest state for TRS. I think it's our busiest state. I'd be interested to look back on the distribution of projects. I know that California has been very busy for us too. They also have a very robust environmental program. New York, we've done a lot of work in, but I would say that New Jersey is definitely.
Oh yeah, New Jersey has a lot of industrials in industries. When I started working as a kid, I worked in metal fabrication, and I mean, there's a lot of byproducts. This is very important what you do. I wish there was more companies that would actually do this stuff because I mean, there's so much to clean up, I guess. And,
there's a lot of work.
This sounds like it takes a long time to get this stuff out of the ground. And is that now? Tell us about because when we do junk removal, we know our objective. People tell us, get rid of this table, we get rid of the table. They tell us every bit. When you guys go to a site, I guess the state or the town knows that used to be a place where it was being used for an industry that had byproducts. Now, if you want to build something on there, you have to get a company like TRS. Now, how does TRS know what you guys use samples? You take samples of the soil.
Exactly.
And you look for, but I mean, you take samples from one part or do you have to take multiple samples?
This is a great question. So typically by the time TRS gets involved in the project, right, that front end work as far as, defining the problem, right? What is the contaminant of concern, right? What's the chemical we're trying to treat? Where is it on the site? And what's our goal? What do we want to reduce that concentration to, either in soil or groundwater? Most of that stuff is at least loosely understood and defined, right? And then TRS comes in after contracting, and there's lots of different contracting vehicles and mechanisms. It can get sort of complicated. But once we're on site, right, and we start our process and installing our system, we get a lot more information, right? We put lots of holes in the ground. If it's an in situ treatment, we're installing electrodes or heaters and vapor recovery points, and monitoring wells, temperature monitoring points, and all sorts of things in the ground.
Wow.
So the data density goes up tremendously,
Nice.
right? We understand the site a lot better. And this is before we've even started.
So you're getting data.
Treatment. Yeah, we're getting data back, and we're using that in order to tweak our system, tweak our design, make sure that we're going to fully capture that problem and be able to solve it for the client. So that's the first.
That's
step
the
of
first
project.
step. Now I noticed you guys use it looks like a fire truck on your website, but obviously it's something else that you use. I guess there's pumps and all types of mechanisms that uses.
Sure.
So I guess when you get down to like the brass tacks of cleaning up a site, do you guys have to dig it up and wet it and clean it? It's just like,
how does it work?
Massive.
No, I could explain this to you. This is a great question. So we'll talk about the fire truck in a minute, because that's a different thing. It's a different business unit for TRS, and it's very interesting. But since we're already talking about the thermal side, let's stick with that. So TRS utilizes primarily two different technologies to heat the ground, right? As a thermal remediation vendor, we're using heat to remove contaminants, right? There's two main ways that we can do that. The first is with electrical resistance heating, and that's using high voltage electricity and passing current through the ground, right? There's a resistance to the flow of that electricity through the ground, which creates heat. Eventually, we'll raise that temperature to the boiling point of the contaminant that we're trying to capture. Yeah. Usually that's around the boiling point of water.
Okay.
All right. That's going to make it into a steam, into a vapor. And then we're going to capture that vapor, extract it from the ground, and treat it on site. So that's one way, and we can dig into.
And that's why it takes and that's what actually gives you the reputation of being fast and efficient.
It's extremely,
because you're actually doing it right there on the site.
Exactly, you're doing it in situ, and that's a tremendous value to a lot of our clients who have active manufacturing facilities, for example.
Yes.
We just completed a very large job in New Jersey where there was an active manufacturing facility that could not stop operations. Oh, right. So we had to install this system underneath that factory while it's operating and do that remediation and not impact their business. And that's something we do frequently. Right.
Wow.
So anyway, that's one type of heating that we do. It's called resistance heating.
It's resistant heating.
And, and if you and I were electrodes, right, that's what's in the ground. That's how we're going to deliver that energy.
Yes.
If energy was flowing between us, there'd be a natural resistance to that flow in the ground. It would create heat and eventually boil off the contaminants, right? In practice, it's more complicated than that, but
sure,
that's really what's happening.
And do you use tools to see how deep the solvents or whatever you're trying to eradicate go?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we arrive on site, we have a rough idea of how deep we're going to need to install our infrastructure in order to treat that problem, right? And every site is very different in terms of the distribution of contaminants. If the lithology is unique on that site and you've got clay and then a sand layer and then a very dense clay or bedrock,
yes,
the distribution of contaminants in the ground can be extremely complex.
Yeah.
Right. And usually it's our clients that are doing the front end legwork to determine the extent of the problem, or at least as best they can.
Okay.
Right? And they're doing that exactly how you said before, through samples, right? They've either got groundwater monitoring wells that they'll monitor for many years, right? And that's what we were talking about before. By the time they get to TRS, right, they've probably been at the site for quite a long time. They've also taken soil samples, most likely, which means they're just taking a core out of the ground. Then they're analyzing it for their target contaminants to see what's the concentration of this chlorinated solvent, for example, in this particular portion of the site. And in doing so, they'll create what we'll call a conceptual site model, right? And it's just a snapshot of the distribution of contamination across the site, as well as the lithology of the site. We'll know where groundwater is. We'll know, the hydraulic conductivity of the soil. How fast is that water going to move through that site?
Huh.
Yeah, what's the resistivity of the soil? And we'll use that to determine how much power do we need for the site to be able to pass that current.
Wow. So
between
you're pretty much
electrodes.
using electricity to clean contaminants.
That's exactly
and
what
that's,
we're
and
doing.
it heats
with
it up
with electrical resistance
with
heating.
electric.
That's exactly right. We're actually passing
amazing.
voltage through the ground. current through the
Now
ground.
you gotta be careful not to get electrocuted. But I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. Even our clients who we're contracted with, done work with, it's hard to understand how we're going to inject essentially electricity into the ground safely. But,
and it works.
Oh,
because
yes.
you obviously have to
Oh,
take
yes.
samples after the job is done to
Exactly.
see. Now is there ever such thing, because I know I've done cleanup jobs, but I know that there's no such thing as like 100% clean, so you have to clean it at a certain I think mathematical equation that they want. It has to meet a certain criteria.
Exactly. And in New Jersey, they're very strict and very aggressive cleanup standards, which is fantastic.
What do you want, like 99.9?
Yeah. And actually, that's I'm glad you said that number, because that's typically what we'll see with a thermal remediation.
99.9.
99% is, I would say, the vast majority of our sites see a 99% reduction from a baseline concentration.
Wow.
And we'll just add decimals from there. Right?
Yeah.
So 99.9 is very common. 99.99, a little more difficult, but we'll do it. And we've gone more decimals than that. And because it's such a robust technology, it's just based on physics.
So
right?
this technology
you
guys just started using this technology?
No. We've been doing this since the early 90s.
Really? And you guys are pretty much the only ones that are using this?
No, there's a handful of others. Like I said, we're a small niche in the environmental remediation world.
Okay, so
but it is an extremely effective technology.
Yes.
And that's why we can get to those levels of reduction. And we'll actually guarantee our projects to those levels of reduction.
That's great. So you would guarantee it before the job gets done.
We'll guarantee it.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing. Yeah. What was like the worst job you've ever done? Like, I mean, size wise, and like, did you ever feel like it was just too much and you were like, I can't do this?
Yes. Yes. I've definitely had some difficult ones. The one that comes to mind was, we were talking about it earlier, a very large job in northern Jersey. It was between $20 and $30 million project cost.
Wow.
And it was under an active facility for it was a very challenging site. Let's just put it that way. Extremely challenging site. It's a confidential client. I can't discuss who it was and the specifics of the site, but it was a very challenging project. And thankfully, we had an amazing team.
Oh, that's what you
TRS
need.
That allowed us to
team.
Complete that work. If there's one thing I will say about TRS is that they've done an extremely good job at hiring.
Yes.
Very motivated, intelligent, driven people.
I want people to hear that. That is what you need. That's something that we here at Junk Doctors also believe very well, because if you don't have the right team, you're not going to be able to do good work. You have to have good. The most valuable asset is your employees. We take care of our employees. They take care of making sure they do their job efficiently, but it's all about training and making sure you're training correctly. And that sounds like something that you guys have to do. I mean, for you to pull off that sort of job, you guys have to work and be on the same page. And, obviously you guys are probably using software to communicate, and, you have to also know how to use certain equipment. And that must have been very challenging. And luckily you guys used the right people to get it done, because that could have turned totally bad.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it takes a village on all projects, right? There's no size limitation on the need for teamwork and good people and good communication. But as they get bigger and they get into that size, it's all the more critical because you're working with multiple crews and multiple shifts and lots of people on site that aren't necessarily from our company either. I mean,
Yes.
We've got lots of subcontractors.
Yes.
And, it takes a village.
I want people to know, like, a lot of people, they don't know that there's jobs like this that are out there.
I didn't know about this job.
I mean, you must have been told about it. Maybe you were referred to, hey, why don't you try? And I want people to know, we need people like Bob. People need people like us. Junk removal. There are careers out there that pay well. There are jobs out there. How do you guys go about looking for your workers? Do you guys do it the general HR way, where your home resources look for the workers, or you guys look for specific college educated, or do they get trained on the job themselves, or is there some type of experience they have to have?
It's all of the above, to be honest with you. We certainly do job postings, and if any of your listeners are interested, we've go to our website. We've got opportunities listed there frequently.
Yes.
I would say my favorite way to find people, and the way that I actually was found by TRS, is by subcontracting. So we'll often hire other companies, environmental companies. We'll hire waste removal companies, for example, to come in and help us with the various parts of our job. And that's how I got exposed to TRS and how I ultimately got the job, was working for them as a subcontractor in New Jersey. I was actually in Teterboro, right by the airport.
No way.
Yeah.
Teterboro.
And that's I think how we found, at least in my experience, some of our best employees, because you get like a live interview with them over a period of time to see, hey, are they a good fit? And we're a unique company, right? It's a lot it's a lot of travel.
Yes.
It's very difficult jobs, right? But everybody, in the company is just kind of wired that way. To whatever it takes, very committed and motivated. And
I want people to hear that, especially younger people. Maybe they're probably not going to hear this podcast, but if you have kids that are getting older and they don't know what they want to do, environmental cleanup companies like TRS, I mean, they are interested in hiring new people. And this is a job that is going to get bigger and it's going to scale, because we do have a lot of cleaning up from our past. America was the world's maker of pretty much everything. We do have a lot of sites that have to be cleaned up, especially now because people want more living space, and developers have to build, but they have to make sure they're building on clean soil and clean sites, and that's the importance of companies like TRS. And people could make a great living doing this. I mean, and it's not just the money, it's the experience and the gratification of doing something well for your environment. I mean, do you feel that way when you get this stuff out of the ground?
Yeah, there's definitely, a satisfaction from going to a Superfund site that's just essentially condemned. And when you leave, you've cleaned it down to drinking water standards.
That's great.
That's a fantastic feeling. And it's something that we get to experience often with TRS.
How do you feel when you hear stories about like small towns that they find out that they have this particular chemical or solution in their water? Do you feel like that could have been prevented? Is there any preventive measures that your company also provides?
So we're coming in after the fact, after it's already happened, right? So the prevention side of the coin, which there's certainly things you can do on that side, that's really not our arena.
That should be the government.
What we do is we come in after there is a problem and that town's water supply is contaminated from a source area, right? That's where we're targeting. Now, there's lots of technologies, pump and treat systems that can try to, rein that back in. But the most contaminated area, that's the spot right under your factory where all the initial contamination went. That's the spot that we focus on with this technology. It's the hardest, most difficult, most contaminated spots, that's what's appropriate for a thermal remediation.
Wow.
That's where
Over
we
the
go.
years, America and their regulate EPA and DEP has, implemented very harsh, strict laws. Is
That's
this
good.
to fix the past and not repeat the past problems that we've done?
Oh, exactly.
And you think it is good? It's not over-regulated?
Not from my perspective, because from my little corner of the world, we've got tons of environmental issues and liabilities that need to be fixed, right? And the easiest way to prevent that is through increased regulation. Now, how that actually gets borne out in terms of the politics side, that's not really my thing. But I do deal with the here and the now in terms of what needs to be cleaned, where, and what's the standard that we need to meet. That's how it intersects with what we do. And certainly in a place like New Jersey, where the regulation has been more stringent, that's better for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better for, residents of New Jersey, because they're driving a cleaner environment, right? A cleaner place. Nobody wants dirty drinking water.
No.
Nobody wants contamination in their backyard.
No.
Right. And what we're trying to do is clean the sins of the past, if you will.
Yeah.
And a lot of our sites are legacy sites. They're back from the 60s and the 70s when there was no regulation.
Not really.
People are using these chemicals and they don't know any better, so they're dumping them out the back door.
Yeah.
And maybe they do know better. There's definitely those too.
Yes.
But a lot of that stuff is still there. It doesn't just go away.
I know.
And that's where we come in. We're trying to.
There is a lot of history in New Jersey because I was born and raised here, but I know the swamp areas of New Jersey by Rutherford and our Giant Stadium and Jets where they play over that area. That used to be before any type of industry came here. There used to be beds of oysters there, very clean. You could pretty much go fishing in there. But the pollution definitely driven that away. Was it a good thing? I think you're right. I think companies didn't know that this was going to cause problems. I think they thought that maybe the water would dilute it and it would get diluted somehow and filtrated through the clouds or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they say dilution is the solution to pollution or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not true.
It isn't. I don't think it's true because you mentioned forever chemicals.
Oh, that's the newest example, and it's a great example, right? Because they came around probably 40 years ago. They were probably first developed, and they've been used in all sorts of stuff. Teflon, pan coatings, all the way to firefighting foams, which is probably the way most of your listeners will be familiar with it now. At the time, that was a miracle. That was a miracle invention, right?
Yes, plastic.
Exactly. And now, 40 years on, we recognize, wow, that was actually a disaster, and it's causing major issues for everybody. Yeah,
you're not kidding. New Jersey is very, now that I think about it, I know they are very regulatory with waste because I'm in a waste removal, but now I'm thinking we can't even use plastic bags at ShopRite anymore. And I'm happy for that because I hate seeing plastic bags everywhere. I don't care about using a bag over and over again. I have cloth bags. It's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. But
it's an evolution, right? You learn more as time goes on. And what we're learning right now is that these PFAS chemicals especially are very harmful and just detrimental and just pervasive. They're everywhere. They're saying that everybody's got PFAS in their bodies right now. Just from living and being exposed to these things. They're in water supplies. They're all over the place. So that is something we're very keyed in on because there's regulation now coming down that cleanup standards and acceptable levels of this chemical are going to be extremely low, which is going to drive, just like it did in New Jersey with chlorinated solvents, it's going to drive a lot of that remediation market. So it's something we are very engaged in and tracking and trying to be a part of the solution.
Do you think that there's ever going to be a day, because there's always some type of chemical spill or something, but is there ever going to be a day that we're going to be able to eradicate the stuff from the past?
that's what we're working on, but there's always going to be another spill or another environmental liability, right? All we're trying to do is provide effective solutions for our clients now, right? And there's no shortage of sites that require cleaning up. So I don't know that we're ever going to run out of work. I sure hope we don't. But my suspicion, it would be a good thing in a way, because then we're done, right? We've completed the mission. Everything's clean.
Yeah.
We all know that that's not realistic. And I think that we're going to continue to remain busy.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I could definitely see that.
I
just hope that the majority of the really bad stuff, is gonna, be one day taken out. But I mean, as long as we do have companies like TRS that's on the job, and at least we have that, I mean, there's places that don't have this, and they don't have anybody that's building. They're just building on top of their stuff. There's no regulations of calling a place like TRS to clean out these sites. I've seen them myself. I've seen places where this big parking lot, nobody's allowed to park anything on it because they have hoses sticking out of it because they're getting rid of the stuff that was on there. And there are places like that here where, in Dover, New Jersey, but there's like that in a lot of towns in Dover. I mean, a lot of towns in New Jersey. It's good. It's good to see that, to see another company that does something else in environmental cleanups or in cleaning up. I thought that, I mean, we're kind of like part of the same objective. Like, we're here to cleaning up the stuff that people don't want.
Absolutely.
We clean up stuff that would generally end up on the side of roads, to be honest with you. A lot of people hire a lot of companies that don't even have the licensing to dump, but they'll use a U-Haul truck, clean it out, get paid, and then dump it somewhere. And they can't do that no more because of technology. There's too many cameras. You get caught illegally dumping, you're looking at $30,000 to $5,000 to $30,000 fine. You're looking at some very serious consequences. They got very strict with that.
That's good for you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
I mean, business.
I've been doing the waste removal thing for over 5 years with Junk Doctors. We did it. We didn't want to be a franchise. We wanted to go, because franchises use smaller trucks. They use 15 cubic yard trucks, and then they just throw the items in the back of the truck. We use this methodology called the Tetris methodology, where everything has to fit, because you're only paying for the room that you take up in our trucks. Our trucks are 25 cubic yards. They're pretty much double of our competitors. We're disrupting the industry. A lot of our competitors, they even put wood panels inside the truck to make it even smaller. So that's taking up room. Our trucks is full metal, all metal. There's nothing sticking out. They don't take up room. It's 100% 25 cubic yards, and we're able to even fit more. And then tarps come down, and we stuff the stuff in there. And people don't have to use the whole truck. I mean, we do everything from picking up refrigerators at Freon, and we take it to facilities to get the Freon taken out. But it's like growing up and when I wasn't in this business and driving through New Jersey, seeing stuff just thrown on the side of the road in the 1990s and 80s, and under overpasses there would be thrown couches. You don't see that as much no more. And that's stopped, and that's good. But yeah, we come across a lot of jobs that I would say are biologically pretty bad.
Environmentally challenging.
But we've done jobs where counties or towns have called us and said, somebody has passed away. They stayed in, they weren't found for a certain amount of time, and we would have to put our biohazard stuff on and get it cleaned out. And we've done it. And it's just all part of the job. And, we're a non-franchise company that's New Jersey, pretty much born and started, and we're here to service the New Jersey resident and provide New Jerseyans with the best affordable junk removal. Everybody can afford our services. It's not something that you have to overpay because a company wants to maximize their profit. I'm pretty sure TRS is the same way. They're not there just to take money. They're there to, obviously you have to pay for the services, but they do guarantee 100% that they're going to get this cleaned up. And that's why I like non-franchise companies that can really stand up to what they say. And it's our reputation on the line. So, that's very important. And that's the whole objective of our podcast and our Facebook group, Entrepreneurs and Small Businesses, or Entrepreneurs and Businesses of New Jersey, is just to network and have the small business get the light and get, that's why I tell everybody, a lot of people, hey, I want to come on your podcast. I want to come on. And I try to get as many people. I do about one a week, twice a week, because I am busy, but I like doing it. I do it for free. And I don't know if it's free. I mean, to me, it's a win-win situation. We get to introduce you. People get to understand what your company does. People get to understand what we do. So, I mean, it's a win for everybody. And then they get to see, a face to a company. Because let me tell you something, Bob, things are going to change drastically with technology in the next, I want to say in the next year to 3 years. I mean, people are not going to know if they're talking to an AI system or they're talking to a human. So initially, when we started a podcast, we said the podcast would be good because then people could see a face. I'm not an avatar. Bob's not an avatar.
We think he's not an avatar.
We're not avatars, and we are actual representatives of the companies that we work for. So, that's one of the good things about the podcast. People get to see actual faces and get to meet actual people or see the people that work for the company. But having you come up, I mean, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you could tell anybody, tell people about your company, or anything?
Off the cuff, no. I could do a shameless plug for our website.
Do a plug. That's what this company's for. Plug in your company.
So thermalrs.com. Got lots of pictures of what we do. You can see our entire team there. There's contact forms if you guys are interested in what we do. We also talk about hiring people. That's where we'll post job opportunities and things like that. So,
job opportunities, guys, especially, young guys coming out of high school, maybe bachelor's degrees. I mean, what do you guys look for?
We look for all types, right? I mean,
really?
we're hiring, seasoned professionals all the way down to entry-level workers. And, we do on-the-job training for just about everybody.
That's great.
We're hiring.
Where are you guys located?
So our corporate headquarters is technically in Washington State, but we're a virtual company. So everybody has a home office.
And you're living in Jersey.
I'm living in PA.
Okay, that's right next door. Okay,
it's basically the same.
Yeah, but you work out here.
But I work out here, and it's a lot of travel with this job, but you get to see the world. And,
do you drive or fly a lot?
It depends on where I'm at. If I'm working in New Jersey, I'm definitely driving.
Yeah.
But like when I was working in France, I flew.
Yeah, nice.
So it's a lot of travel.
How
but
long
it's
was
a
that
great
flight?
way. So it depends. On the way out, it was about 8.5 hours. Well, straight through, but I had a layover in Germany. And on the way back, it's a little longer.
Oh man! Did you have a nice seat, comfortable, or what?
Yeah, of course.
Did you sleep?
No, I don't sleep on planes.
Man. Oh, you're not like me. I take a nice Benadryl and a shot of vodka, and I'll go to sleep.
I wish. Maybe a shot of vodka, but I don't think it's gonna help me sleep.
Yeah, but that's amazing. Do you love your job?
I do.
That's great.
I do.
That's great.
I can say that with
that's great. That's good. So, and you've been doing this 8 years, and this is something, a passion of yours, and something that. Did you see yourself doing this?
No, like I said, I didn't even know that this particular technology existed until I ended up, bumping into them in the environmental remediation world, right? I got subbed out, but I was working for somebody who did something totally different. And this one was, very interesting. And thankfully they were interested in me. So
that's awesome.
The rest is history.
And you've been 8 years and you love it. And
I want to do 8 more.
You want to do 8 more? Is 8 more? That's it?
No.
I thought it was retirement and 8 more.
Man, if I can retire at 8, I actually will do that.
Hey, that's awesome. You didn't do remediation for like flood removal. This is your first remediation, but for environmental cleanup.
No, so I actually did work for an environmental remediation company previously.
Yes.
That's how I ended up getting linked up with TRS, but we did a different kind of remediation. So this is thermal, right? And we've talked, that's like a niche technology.
Okay, I got you.
Previously, I worked for a company that actually sort of bumped elbows with what you do. In one division, we had a disaster response division.
Yes.
So we would do flood cleanup,
Yes.
fire cleanup.
Yes. Okay.
All sorts of, the disaster.
That's like the Surf Pro type of thing.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. So a little bit of that, but it was primarily a dig and haul company, which is on a technical level probably our biggest competitor, right? And that's just digging contaminated soil out of the ground and replacing it with clean, right? That's something that's intuitive, I think, to most people. If you have dirty dirt in this section, you can dig it out, put clean soil back, and you're done. So I think that, there's a lot of market education that goes into what we do, because it's much more complex than just digging it out and putting clean back in. And for that reason, I think that's why dig and haul is probably our biggest competitor when it comes to technologies.
Yeah, and the dig and haul is probably more affordable.
It
but
depends.
It may not be the most
on
accurate.
A small scale, absolutely. If it was the size of this little room here, this table, yeah, it's probably going to be cheaper. But a lot of times that contamination is 100 feet down.
Yeah, it's not as accurate.
You can't dig it if it's 100 feet down.
Yeah.
Or if it's under this building and you don't want to knock down your nice building,
yeah,
then that's not an option, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of considerations and reasons why you would go with one technology or another. And as I said before, we specialize in the really difficult.
The dig and haul, it seems like they would have to do it, but they would have to still pass the part where it is, clean to the degree of what it's a standardized.
Sure. And you got to pay to get rid of it, right? So if consider a very large site, right, and it's a hazardous waste, you're not only having to deal with that on site, but you're having to transport it, which brings in a whole host of regulations and headaches, frankly, to transport hazardous waste. Then you're having to dispose of it. You have to find a receiving facility, and the liability of the waste stays with the generator. So there's lots of considerations and costs that go into dig and haul that aren't immediately apparent. And on bigger jobs, as the scale goes up and up and up, thermal becomes more and more the cost-effective solution. So, and that's really what we're in the business of, right? We want to provide the most cost-effective solution to reach the client's goals. And there have been times where we've said to them, "This is not a thermal job, right? You'd be better off doing this or that or whatever." So we do want to remain a trusted advisor with our clients.
Cool. That's transparency.
And sometimes thermal's not the right solution, or it's just going to be way too expensive, and we're happy to tell somebody that.
Good.
Luckily, our clients are very smart,
Yeah.
very smart people, and usually by the time they're coming to us, they know that's
the solution.
It's one of the solutions they want to consider. We're not always the only one.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So.
And you guys got a good reputation, and you guys have been around for a while. How long has TRS been around? Because you guys used to be called something else, and then you went with TRS.
Yeah, it started as Thermal Remediation Services, and that was started in the early 90s.
Wow.
And one of our founders is still with the company today.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we've been around a while, and started with ERH. We talked about that, the resistance heating. We have another technology called TCH, which is more like a toaster. You know how a toaster works, right?
Yes.
You put a bagel in and you turn it on, and then that thing gets red hot.
Yes.
And radiates heat out into whatever you're cooking.
Wow.
We can essentially use that same idea, that same technology in the ground.
Wow.
So it's just another way to get heat.
Wow. You mean you put coils in the ground?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah,
Oh
a resistive element, and then you heat it up, and that heat just goes into the ground.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So basically, these you're saying that most of these solvents and most of these chemicals that are legacy chemicals that are from long ago, all they need is to be burned off. It sounds like it's like some sort of fuel that, like, it's like fuel, like you just need to burn it off.
Yeah, it's like it's like water, right? You know, if you took this glass of water
Boil it.
and got it to 100 degrees C
It would vapor.
at 1 atmosphere, yeah, it's going to turn into a vapor phase, right?
Yes.
And there are a whole host of chemicals that will do the same thing.
Wow.
Right? So all it takes, and that's why we can get these huge, reduction percentages
And get it done fast.
because it's as soon as you get it to that temperature and it turns into the vapor phase, it wants to go. And
Wow.
we just have to be able to capture that and treat it.
Oh, now you capture it, and do you guys have to put it in like a tank or something, or do you have? I mean,
Yeah. So we just talked about the two ways to create the heat.
yeah.
The way that we capture the steam is via a co-located
Okay.
vapor recovery screen
Yes.
with whatever element we're using for heating.
Yes.
We've got a vapor recovery point,
Mhm.
right? It's under a low vacuum, so it gives that steam a place to want to go.
Sure.
And then through a network of piping, we'll run that through steam condensers and vapor recovery blowers.
And
there's
then
a
that
whole host of-
filtration, it's like a filtration system, and then you
on the
could,
back end, yeah.
and then it could be let go.
Yeah, we'll have a treatment system. We'll either run it through carbon, is a very common one.
Yeah.
We've got oxidizers and
Oxidizers. Yeah.
all sorts of treatment options that we own and that we can implement. It
Wow.
all depends on the site specifics.
Wow. I really am this has been a very interesting podcast. I hope people really understand the magnitude of what Bob is saying. And, we will definitely do a post up of this again. And I think that we're going to also speak about this because this is a very important subject. If we want to clean our state, our government, our state or our country, and produce these type of services around the world, you should really consider this sort of career. I mean, this is a very intriguing career. I like you just said, I didn't even know this existed. I knew that there was a company that did, some sort of bio cleanup, but I didn't know that TRS existed as far as using this type of technology. Very interesting. I am very glad to meet you.
Likewise.
I hope that we could, work on something in the future. If you ever need our services, if we ever come across a big corporation that can afford your services or they can use it, I mean, we will be more than happy to, recommend you. I mean, we do come across big contractors and they've never asked us. No, we've been asked if we do environmental cleanups, something sort of and we sit there and no, we don't. We're not equipped for that. And we've been asked, like, do you know? And we're like, nah. So I think now we don't get that asked frequently, but we've been asked occasionally, and especially at networking meetings because people do ask us. Do you guys do like something like this, like clean up contaminated soil? They would say that, and we're like, no, because they think like all you have to do is just excavate it and dump it. And some companies don't. I think people don't know that. Yeah, you have to do it different ways, and this is an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you also have smarter companies that know that this is a solution. But Bob, if there's anything else that you want to say, you're free to say it. I just want to say thank you for everybody tuning in, and check out this podcast and what Bob Glass does with TRS, and research it, educate yourself. The best thing to do is educate yourself on where you move, see what's been built there, and make the determination. And this was just a really fascinating podcast because in New Jersey, people do live right next to commercial projects and buildings and development sites. So this is a very good educational podcast just to know what's in the ground, and it's very important. So this has been great, and this is educational for me. Thank you for showing up.
Thanks
And
to you. Thanks to Junk Doctors for doing it and for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, this is what we do. And for anybody else that's a small business, you're more than welcome to contact us. Where to reach us. We're Junk Doctors trsnj.com. Our information will be on the podcast links. So will TRS's information. And again, thank you for everybody that's supportive to small businesses that are local and privately owned. And I would just like to say we are the best at what we do. Going local and going with a privately owned company is probably the best thing you can do. We guarantee our work, and you'll get good quality work. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Have a great day.